Hello viewers, in this video I will try to discuss and I will try to give my own explanation on an essay called Is the Post in Postmodernism the Post in Postcolonial, written by Kwame Anthony Appiah. At the beginning of the video, I would like to say one thing, and that is, since English is not my native language, since English falls in the category of non-native language, that's why my pronunciation it will not be uh, as you expect. So therefore, I am asking your forgiveness. Okay, now let's begin the discussion. This video it will be part one. In part two, I will try to discuss more elaborately in the upcoming video. This video will be just a uh, an introductory video for you. So without any delay, let's begin the video. The essay is the post in postmodernism, the post in postcolonial. This is composed by or penned down by British American philosopher, professor, and writer Kwame Anthony Appiah. He was born on 8 May 1954 and he is a British American philosopher and writer who has written about political philosophy, ethics, the philosophy of language and mind, and African intellectual history. Appiah was the Lawrence S. Rockefeller University professor of philosophy at Princeton University. Before moving to New York University, NYU, in 2014, he holds an appointment at the NYU Department of Philosophy and NYU School of Law. Appiah, he was also elected president of the American Academy of Arts and Letters in January 2022, very recently. So this is a little information about our writer or author. Now let's try to know about the essay. So through this essay, the writer Kwame Appiah has tried to depict how Eurocentric thinking has always tried to portray non-Eurocentric culture in a very pathetic and in a very negative way. Clear? Apart from that, the writer Appiah has also tried to delineate how non-West countries are depicted by the Western readers, Western writers. Okay. So if you talk about Eurocentrism, then Eurocentrism is nothing but it is a Western centric thinking, or it is a worldview that is centered on Western civilization, or a biased view that favors it over non-Western civilization. The exact scope of Eurocentrism, it varies from the centric Western world to just the continent of Europe, or even more narrowly the Western Europe, especially during the Cold War. When the term is applied historically, it may be used in reference to an apologetic stance toward European colonialism and often forms of imperialism. The term Eurocentrism, it dates back to the late 1970s, but it did not become prevalent until the 1990s when it was frequently applied in the context of decolonization and development and humanitarian aid that industrialized countries offered to developing countries. And the term has since been used to critique Western narratives of progress. Western scholars who have downplayed and ignored non-Western contributions and to contrast Western epistemologies with indigenous ways of knowing. So, through my reading, you might have got to know that Eurocentrism, it is a kind of thinking, or it is a kind of tradition where the Eurocentric people, they always try to depict the Western people as the savior and the non-Western people as one who is always in jeopardy, or one who always in peril. Okay, so they all also try to consider that, or acknowledge that non-West are, or non-West can never reach at the level of the West. Okay. That is also part of Eurocentrism. Mm. So through this writing, through this essay, the writer has tried to depict how that Eurocentric thinking uh, has influenced African art. Okay, so that thing the writer has tried to depict extensively. But before moving on, we must know now what is postmodern literature. Okay, since we have got the word postmodernism at the very beginning of our title, the postmodernism, it is a form of literature that is characterized by the use of metafiction, unreliable narrator that you might have seen and read, self reflexivity, and the intertextuality. So, these all things are the quality, or the qualities that you will get in postmodern literary works. The post-colonial literature is the literature from formerly colonized countries. It often addresses the problems and consequences of the decolonization of a country. Besides, the questions relating to the political and cultural independence of formerly subjugated people and themes such as racialism and colonialism. So these two things are like these two themes, you will get many other related themes in postmodern literary works or literature. Okay, if you talk about what post-colonial critics do, then they reject the claims to universalism made on behalf of canonical Western literature and seek to show its limitations of outlook, especially in its general inability to empathize across boundaries of cultural and ethnic difference. They examine the representation of other cultures and literature as a way of achieving this end. They show how such literature is often evasively and crucially silent on matters concerned with colonization and imperialism, and they also place in the foreground question of cultural difference and diversity and examine their treatment in relevant literary works. So just by reading, you might have got to know what they do, right? Very simple. Then number five, they celebrate hybridity. That is the situation in which an individual or group belong simultaneously to more than one culture, one who does not feel quite at home with either group. Number six, they develop a perspective whereby states of exclusion, marginality, plurality, and otherness are seen as sources of energy for peaceful change rather than as odious burdens to be stoically endured. And number seven, they ask how does a text represent various aspects of colonial oppression. So, in brief, we can say the post colonial thinking, or the post-colonial critics, they always try to explore how the colonial power, or how the colonial discourse and literature or colonial writers have tried to subjugate the uh, exploitation of colonized people by the colonial authority. In every uh, post-colonial or in every works that is written in the time of colonial rule, you will get that they are often silent in the context of atrocities uh, committed by the authority, and they often ignore how the colonial rule uh, had been detrimental for the people or for the native people where the colonial authority had ruled. So those things. And now let's try to know about postmodern literature. I think postmodern literature, I have little bit tried to give information at the beginning. That's it. We will not. Okay, let's try to know more. Uh, Postmodern literature, it is a style of experimental literature emerged strongly in the United States in the 1960s through the writings of authors such as Kurt Vonnegut, sorry for the pronunciation again, Thomas Pynchon, William Geddes, Philip K. Dick, Kathy Acker, and John Bird. Besides postmodernists, they often challenge authorities, which have been seen as symptom of the fact that this style of literature first emerged in the context of political tendencies in the 1960s. And this inspiration is, among other things, seen through how postmodern literature is highly self-reflexive about the political issues it speaks to. Okay, so that's it. I will not going to explain because if you read the line, then you automatically understand it. So in this essay, is the post in postmodernism, the post in postcolonialism? In this essay, you will get that in 1987. The Center for African Art in New York, they organized a show entitled Perspectives, uh, Angles on African Art. Okay, so in this uh, event, the writer has seen one thing, and that is Yoruba man with a bicycle or man with a bicycle. So this man with a bicycle, it is an artwork or it is a sculpture created by the Yoruba people of Africa or Yoruba tribe from Africa. So how that tribe symbolizes Eurocentric thinking or non, and how that sculpture, how it tries to delineate the gap or the conflict between Eurocentric and non-Eurocentric thinking. That thing the writer has tried to expound through this essay. So Appiah, the writer, he has focused on one particular work in the event, that is perspective and angles on African art, and that is Yoruba Man with a Bicycle, which the African American novelist and critic James Baldwin also noted precisely because it was not an example of uh, primitivism, which is the kind of African art which usually attracts Western attention. So you will see that in Western uh, context or in Western society, they are often attracted to the things which they lack. Like since most of the Western countries they are developed, so they are more happy to get something in non-Western literary work or in non-Western painting work, the thing they are lacking. For example, poverty or um, uncivilized people, like that. Okay, and the same thing you will not get in a sculpture, that is Yoruba man with a bicycle. So if you want to know the picture, or if you want to look at the picture, just type it in the Google, then the picture will pop out. This piece is neo-traditional, produced for sale on the international art market. So this uh, painting or this sculpture, it is a kind of neo-traditional work of art which was produced for sale on the international art market. Appiah, he has interpreted that the work within the context of postmodernism, which rejects any claim to exclusivity and universality. Modernists had previously argued for universal criteria to judge whether something is a work of art. So here I would like to add one thing, and that is the the Western people, or the Western thinkers, or the Western readers, or whatever the things that is related to Western society, they often try to impose their thinking of non-Western society. And they always love to adore or love to cherish those things if they get in literary works, in artwork, or in any product they buy, they read, or they explore. Okay, very simple. Like if you talk about novels, they often like novels uh, where African tribal culture is depicted. Why? Because in through African tribal culture, they feel that this is how Africa is, and this is how African people live. They are not like us, they are different. Okay, they can't be compared with us. So that notion, that concept, they always try to cherish. That's why they love to impose things. And the producer of literary works, they also try to run that thinking for their own profit. Okay. Modernists had previously argued for universal criteria to judge whether something is work of art. Objects that fail to meet those criteria are not works of art, no matter the culture in which they originate. So, if those ideas or those their imaginations that I have just said, if those things are not seen, then often those things are rejected by the modernist or by the people who had thought like that. Okay, and in part, African art was discovered through the modernist assessment that it possesses the sort of significant form found in Western modernist works. But this is exactly what the postmodernists reject. Got it? And it rejects the assumed existence of universal criteria. The postmodern theories coins terms derived from Derrida's deconstructionist school. Terms such as Eurocentric, phallocentric, logocentric, etc. And with them, he challenges the modernists to defend claims to standards untouched by history and culture. Undoubtedly, Appiah sides with the postmodernist. Okay. And Appiah also challenges the modernist tradition by undermining the important concept of opposition between self and other. He does this by analyzing Yoruba men with a bicycle. Here we cannot see the work as simply the product of radically different mentality and culture. This is due to its hybrid character, the presence of the bicycle in the work, which makes it uh, pastiche of African and Western elements, but for the artist, both the traditional aspect of his culture and those he appropriates from the West are simply vehicles for his creativity and nothing else. In the artist's imagination, Africa and the West are not others to each other. So Appiah's reflection on this sculpture imply that in our effort to understand what art is, we ought to abandon the search for one universal and single standard for the qualification of works of art. It is important to note that Appiah is not advocating full-scale relativism that would rob art of its transcendent values as some cultural Philistines advocate nowadays. What he is criticizing is the presumption and the hubris that only the Western artists, beginning with the romantics, so romanticized by Hegel's theory of art, is a self conscious creator. In the process, Appiah is also challenging the view that art gives us success to a genuine otherness, for indeed all of us have something in common with everyday else, our humanity, back to the future of Italian humanism. So, through this reading, we have got to know now that uh, the Eurocentric thinking or the modernist thinking, they always try to they always try to find one universal standard that this is how art should be, this is how a literary work should be written. So that thing he tries to reject through his through his essay. Okay, so in my upcoming video, I will try to talk more about it. Now, that's it for today. Thank you so much.